So I'm Cynthia, and today I'm going to talk about removing environmental toxins for healing. I put out a post just a couple days ago that talked about the 5 simple steps to healing, and removing environmental toxins was number one. And the reason why removing environmental toxins is number one is because if you don't remove environmental toxins, but you eat the cleanest diet and you exercise, it doesn't matter. Those things won't heal you. You'll stay stuck. And I know this because I spent a couple of years doing it. I had an issue in the very beginning. I was allergic to yellow dye number 5, and I healed myself completely, and I was in fabulous health. And then all of a sudden, one day, my health just started to decline, and I didn't realize what was happening. I was still eating the same foods, I was still exercising. In fact, I just started getting so tired that I couldn't exercise anymore. I couldn't do the things that I normally do anymore. And so it just was this slow progression of going downhill, not realizing that I had an environmental toxin that I had introduced into my environment without knowing it. So the majority of the reactions that I've had have been fairly quick and significant enough that I recognize what it is when it's happening. But this particular environmental toxin, I did not recognize it. I didn't know it was there. I didn't know what was happening. And so my health just continued to decline, even though I was still eating exactly the way I had been eating the past 5 years in order to heal. And I was still exercising and working out and doing all the things. So initially I thought it was potentially going into menopause, and that's why things were slowing down and I was gaining weight and I just had low energy. But that wasn't it. It was an environmental toxin that was introduced into my world unintentionally by me. So that's why this is number one, and why I feel it's the most important, because like I said, you can eat all the healing foods, you can do all the exercise you want, and it's not going to matter if you're putting toxins into your body on a daily basis over and over and over again, right? So the number one environmental toxin that I think you should look at first is water. And that may be because that was my biggest problem, but this problem for me has come up over and over and over again. So this is not the first time I've had an issue with water. The very first time I had an issue with water, I was drinking water out of a water cooler at work, which was being cleaned with chlorine, bleach, like once a month. The guy would come in, do his little clean, put new water in, and be gone. So I would notice like the water would smell a little bit like chlorine, and I thought, oh, that's kind of gross. And but everybody else is drinking it, should be fine. Well, it turns out it wasn't fine. And when when I stopped drinking that water, my health improved by about 50%, I would say. That wasn't the only issue at the time, so it wasn't the end all be all, but it was a very big part of what was going on in my body. Water runs your body. Like, your body is literally made of water, and it runs all the processes, right? Because we have all these electrical signals moving throughout, and the water is the conductor. So without having clean, healthy water, you're really injuring your body. You're really creating blocks for those signals to go throughout your body, right? Sorry, losing my words today. So chlorine was the number one in that water, but there was also fluoride, because it was a water cooler that the water was being brought in, like the tap water was being brought in, filtered, and then set in this cooler. So there was fluoride coming in, but they weren't filtering fluoride. And then the second water issue that I had was around lead and PFAS. So I did the second time when I found out the water was causing an issue, which it was a very long, drawn out process to figure that out. It took me, I don't know, probably a year of noticing that when I went away from the house, like when I went away on a trip, I went to a retreat. I went and stayed in my house in Oregon, and things would be different for my body when I was not at home. And I just couldn't figure out why, what was going on, what's happening at home that is causing my body to be different. At first I thought like, oh, it's just stress. I went on this retreat and I'm super relaxed, and of course that's why my body's different here. And when I say my body's different, like I was in menopause way too early, like prior to being 40 years old. And so the doctors didn't know what was wrong with me. They just knew my hormone levels were like extremely low, basically like postmenopausal levels. So when I would go away, I would find that I would start my monthly cycle, which was weird because I hadn't had it in like 8, 9, 10 months. And then all of a sudden I go away and 3 days I'm gone and already it's back. So I realized like, okay, something is happening in my environment at home that's causing this discrepancy. So that happened probably 3 or 4 different times before I realized, oh, it's got to be either my water or my air. It can't be what I'm eating because I was eating the same things in all those locations. So that's when I really started to take a look at water and air. So I had my water tested and I found that I have a higher than normal level of lead in my water. Now, I was filtering my water through a Berkey water filter, but I'm not blaming them. I'm just saying I had 2 filters in a 4-filter big Berkey, and so 2 of the filters had plugs instead of filters. And so it's possible that those plugs weren't working properly. It's also possible that I didn't change my filters often enough because the filters are kind of hard to get sometimes. Like they're often out of stock. So there are some possibilities there. I don't know for sure, but I know that I had my water tested and there was a higher than normal level of lead in it. So I didn't worry about whether it was the Berkey's fault or whatever. I just stopped drinking that water and I started drinking reverse osmosis water first from my local co-op. I figured like, okay, just let's get everything out of the water and I'll be okay. And that water was okay, but it wasn't super helpful for me. So I ended up switching to spring water, which is Mountain Valley spring water. It comes in a green glass bottle. And excuse me, and that has a lot of minerals. So sorry, I'm getting over a cold, and so my throat is really. Anyway, so that has a lot of minerals that can be really helpful for someone who, well, number one, I have an MTHFR genetic mutation, so my body has trouble detoxing, and it also has trouble like taking up nutrients. So and minerals, and so I need that extra intake, and so this water was actually really helpful for me. So better than just like clean pure water with nothing in it was actually clean spring water. So that, and then PFAS, which is something that a lot of my symptoms seem to be related to PFAS, and I didn't have my water tested for PFAS, but I plan to, and that's something that not a lot of water companies are looking at right now. It's not a newer chemical. It's just there are no regulations around it yet, so people aren't really looking at it yet. But it's in the water because it comes from a lot of different locations, particularly like fire retardant things, or like pots and pans, like the lining of pots and pans, like the non-stick ones. So you have to be really careful, and we'll get to that in a little bit. So the main things that I had issues with in my water were chlorine, fluoride, lead, and potentially PFAS. Like I said, I haven't tested for that yet, but a lot of my symptoms were like they seemed like they were the symptoms that you have when you have too much PFAS, like they were consistent with those symptoms. So I have a feeling that I have PFAS in my water as well. So those are just some things that you can start testing for, but honestly, you can just test your water for everything and find out what's in it and see if there's any other additional items, because there's so many things in our water supply. Literally, like our water has to go through roads and farms and all the places where all the things collect, like in the non-organic farms, they collect the herbicides, pesticides, the fungicides, and then on the roads, it's like the oil and the dirt and the grime from like the cars and the smog, and all that stuff just collects and brings it to our waterways, and then we take our water and we try and clean it up, and we use a lot of chlorine to clean it up because we want to kill the bacteria, but then all that chlorine is going into our body and killing off our good bacteria and not maybe our bad bacteria, but it does a whole bunch of other things in our body as well, and so it's just not really helpful. So Lots of ways that water can be contaminated. So definitely something to look at there. And my number one priority always is how is my water changed? Because I've had so many issues with it. And maybe if you haven't had any issues with it, you haven't thought to look at it. But I'm the canary in the coal mine here to tell you like what can and cannot cause problems because like I said, I have an MTHFR genetic mutation, so like things affect me before they affect most other people. So even though my family and I were all drinking the same water, my family, they did have some symptoms, but nothing like what I had. So, for sure, like I'm affected first before everybody else. So it's good. I'm here to tell people like what can affect you over time if you're not noticing it because you might not notice it, but it will affect you over time eventually. So it's just good to look into water number first. But if you're struggling with chronic fatigue, this is like number one, look at your water. Okay, number two is air. So the thing I struggled the most with in air was toxic mold. So I lived in a house growing up that had mold in one of the walls, and we didn't know it for a really long time. And then we did some remodeling, and we found some mold in the walls, and we were like, "Oh my God, what do we do?" So we had to have like a mold expert come in and clean it up and all that. But it was too late, right? I had lived in that house for years, and I had a lot of mold exposure, and so mold is a huge trigger for me for like all the other things I have going on in my body. So anytime I'm around mold, my asthma acts up. I get hives. Like it's not good. So mold is a big one for me. But there's also like chemicals in the air. Like I live down, I don't know, it's a couple miles down the road from this factory, and every time I pass it, this is just this horrible smell coming from the factory, right? And it's only like during certain times of year, so it's not all year round, and it's pretty far away, so I don't worry about it too much where I'm at. But like the cleaner air you breathe, the better your body's going to be because you're literally breathing every minute of every day, and so you're taking in those toxins as you breathe. So if it's not in your home, it could be in the air around you, like just the area that you live in, or even if you have a job that has a lot of chemicals involved. Like I think I mentioned this before, if you like say you're like a pool cleaner, okay, you have all those chemicals that you're using to clean pools, right? Unless you're using like salt, uh, sea salt kind of pools and style instead of like chlorine. But um, not even just, I mean, there's so many people who have to deal with chemicals on a daily basis. Like if you're a house cleaner and you're literally cleaning people's houses with chemicals all day long every day, or you work in a nail salon and you're around all those toxic fumes all day every day, or you're a hairdresser and you're dealing with those toxic fumes all day every day. That stuff can impact you over time. You might not notice it right away, but it will impact you over time if you're doing it every single day. So those kinds of jobs, like I understand people love them and people want to do them, and there's a lot of demand for them, right? Because people want to look pretty or or whatever. But those are the kinds of things that, like, if you're a canary like me, you might want to stay away from doing those kinds of jobs, right? Okay, so basically, I want to know if anyone is out there, even if you're not watching right now, if you're just watching on the replay, I want to know, have you ever had your water tested? Because I really think that there are a lot of people who haven't even thought about it and haven't tested their water. So I just want to know, tell me yes or no, have you tested your water? And if you have tested it, did you find anything in it that was concerning to you that, that might make you stop drinking your filtered tap water? Okay, so number 3 thing to look at is kitchen tools. So we start with the things that are like literally entering our body, right? We're drinking water, we're washing our hands with water, we're drinking it, we're showering in it, we're brushing our teeth with it, we're cooking with it, right? Like that's going into your body all day, every day. Air, you're definitely breathing that in all day, every day. And so next is kitchen tools, because even though you don't think you're eating those things, you kind of are, right? So if you've got a pan or a pot that's like got a nonstick coating on the inside and it's getting kind of old and you're using like metal tools and it gets kind of scraped up, that stuff is flaking off into your food and you're actually consuming it. So it can cause more problems than a new pot, right? But even so, even newer pots, if you test them sometimes for lead, there's a woman on the internet, Lead Safe Mama, and she tests all sorts of like kitchen gadgets, like pots, pans, cups, you know, knives, all sorts of things. She tests other stuff too, but like those are the things that I'm most interested in listening to. And basically, she talks about all the lead, cadmium, and antimonium, like all these things that can be found in our cookware, and we don't realize it. That we're sometimes ingesting, depending on where it is on the pot, because she will test the whole thing. Like sometimes the top of the lid, the underside of the lid, the outside of the pot, the inside of the pot. Like she'll test all the things to tell you like where the danger actually lies, so you're not freaked out thinking like, oh my god, I'm eating this much lead. Well, some cases not, unless you're eating on the outside of your pan, right? So there's some discernment there about like what can and cannot be harmful, but for sure it's really interesting to find out all the things that in our environment that have things like lead or aluminum, right? Have you ever heard people like having issues with aluminum? Most of the time people talk about it in like deodorant, but for sure you can have aluminum in pots and pans that you're then ingesting. It's like leaching into your food because you're heating it up, right? Anytime you heat something up, it kind of melts together with whatever whatever is in there at the time, right? So aluminum can be a problem, lead can be a problem, PFAS could be a problem. The PFAS is in the coating of the pot or the pan if it's like a non-stick coating. So those are the things to look out there for kitchen tools. And then personal products, like I just talked about, deodorant, like aluminum is a key one. I know I've tried a ton of natural deodorants, and the ones that have baking soda in them don't work for me. They just give me a rash. I've tried making my own. I really liked the ones that I made, but they were really oily. They had too much cocoa butter in them, and so they basically ruin all your clothes. And they don't work as long, so it's not helpful. I think the one that I'm using now is like a 7th generation one, but I've tried a lot, and I can't say that I found one that's just like perfect, but for sure, like definitely look for a more natural style of deodorant because your lymph nodes, your lymph system is like there's a big part of it is under your arms, right? And so you're directly impacting that. So your lymphs are your secondary filter. Your liver is your main filter, and it filters all of the macro toxins, and your lymph system filters all your microtoxins. So they work together in tandem. So you really don't want to clog your lymphs, which they're everywhere. Like we have them everywhere, but they're all over our body. But the arm under the arms is one of the specific places where they are, and so that's why deodorant can really impact you if you're putting aluminum into that area, right? Because it's a toxin, and now it has to filter out, and then it gets clogged. And anyway, also things like lotion, right? So lotion, I think the fragrance in lotion is for me the worst part, but honestly, I don't use a lot of lotion. Like in 2010, when I started having allergy to yellow dye number 5, and like I didn't know what was wrong with me, I basically cut out as many products as I could. So I stopped wearing makeup entirely. I only used like one soap. Like it was a shampoo. So I didn't even use conditioner. I used a shampoo, and I used that shampoo to wash my body because I only like I didn't want to use multiple products because I didn't know like what was going to impact me, and so I wanted to keep it as like simple as possible. So I used a different shampoo back then than what I use now, but it was basically like the cleanest shampoo you could buy, right? Like there's almost nothing in it. It was still cleaned my hair, but there was almost nothing in it. So I've tried a lot of different products, and I'm happy to answer questions. If you have questions, you can just put them in the chat. Even if you're not here right now, you can just put them in the chat, and I'll come back in and answer them. Just tag me so that I know they're in there. And then the other personal product, which I don't know, most people might not call this a personal product, but my memory foam mattress was causing me a lot of issues. So yellow dye number 5 is made out of petroleum, and so is memory foam. And I've actually never told this story before, but I'm going to tell it for the first time today. When I was younger, I was probably like 5 years old, and I lived on a farm, and we had a driveway, like a really long driveway, and it was getting paved for some reason, or something like that, right? Like they had just put gravel down, and there was this big pile of tar on the side of the driveway. And my grandpa and I were walking around, and I just remember him like picking it up and like chewing on it, and he was like, "Yeah, it's really good for your teeth. Like it's supposed to whiten your teeth and make them healthier." And so I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." So of course I did the same thing as he did, and I picked up this piece of tar and like chewed on it. And I don't know, I'm sure I probably swallowed it at some point. And I don't know how many times I did this because I don't remember, but I remember for sure that I did this, and I remember my grandpa telling me it was good for my teeth and that's why I did it. Right? So number 1, I've had horrible teeth my whole life. But number 2, it's made out of petroleum products, and I'm like 99.9% certain that the reason I have an allergy to petroleum products is because I ate petroleum when I was that young. And no one should ever eat petroleum. Don't ever do that. Don't ever tell your children that that's a good idea or healthy for their teeth, because it's not. Um, so yeah, definitely a stupid thing I did when I was a kid because I didn't know any better. And my grandfather, I loved him dearly, told me that that was the thing to do. So that's what I did. Hence, I think where the majority of my problems started, because I've had issues since I was young, with all the things. Like I was really sick when I was young. I always had tonsillitis, and I always had bronchitis and asthma, but not regular asthma where like you could go to a doctor and they could test you and see there's asthma, but it was like what the medical medium calls neurological asthma, where it's like related to your gosh, I'm losing my words today, where it's related to your nerve system and like the ability of your lungs to open and close. So it's not like there's like something in the way. It's just this weird type of asthma that's related to neurological issues, which comes along with neurological fatigue. But back then I didn't, I would just tell my mom I couldn't breathe, and she would take me to the doctor. The doctor would be like, "You're fine. You don't have. There's nothing in your airways. Your air sounds fine. You're fine." But I just kept telling her like, "I can't breathe. I can't breathe," and I didn't know why. And also that was probably around the same time when I lived in the moldy house. So I had a lot of environmental toxins in my youth growing up, and that's how I wound up here, and that's how come I'm a canary in the coal mine. So again, not everybody is like me, but I do bring to light those things that will cause you issues eventually. So if you're already having chronic illness, you're probably more like me. You probably have a lot of toxins that happened in your childhood. And if you're not having chronic fatigue or neurological fatigue, and you're just wondering how to like keep things clean, then maybe this might seem like overkill to you. But for me, these things were necessary in my life in order to heal. So I ended up finding out about the memory foam mattress. Somebody online mentioned that they had a yellow dye number 5 allergy, and they were also allergic to their memory foam mattress. And that sent off a red flag for me, because I had only had my mattress for like 6 months. And so I was like, oh my God, could it be the memory foam mattress? So I just stopped sleeping on it for a couple of weeks, and I slept in the living room on the couch. And about like 3 or 4 days into it, the dark circles under my eyes just disappeared. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's the memory foam mattress. So my husband was very sad, but we ended up getting rid of it shortly after that. And getting rid of that and the water, that was what started my healing journey. And then I moved on to adding the healing foods in. So that was a really big piece for me. So look at your memory foam mattress, people. Okay. Next is like cleaning products. So I already talked a little bit about like shampoo and body wash. I just didn't use body wash. Now I use Dr. Bronner's soap, it like a bar of soap because number one, I don't want to bring the plastic into the world, and number two, Dr. Bronner's is super clean. It's a really good soap. You can even use it like if you have a gray water system outside, you can use it and it won't kill your plants depending on which type you use. And then like hand soap, I use whatever the cleanest, clearest. Like I don't want it to have any dye in it. I don't want it to have any fragrance in it unless it's like a natural fragrance like citrus where they like actually put oranges in it or something like that. Um, and same thing with dishwashing detergent. So I typically use seventh generation stuff um, because that's like the easiest for me to find at my local co-op. So for dishwashing detergent and not laundry detergent. Laundry detergent, I actually use something. It's a powder. It comes in like an actual tin, and it looks like it looks like an ad from the 60s or the 50s or something like that. It's like Simple Clean or gosh, I don't know. I'll have to share that in an upcoming live or in one of my posts or something just so you can see it. But basically go to your local co-op and the products that they have in that store are going to be way healthier than what you would normally buy. Like I stopped using Tide like 15 years ago, right? Like growing up, my mom used Tide. That's what we had all day, every day for, I don't know, probably the first 18 years of my life, 17 years of my life. Yeah. And so, yeah, as soon as I moved out, I stopped using that stuff. And even like dryer sheets, like I don't use that stuff anymore. I use like wool dryer balls that go in and help the clothes get a little drier faster and also take some of the static out. Although I have to say they're not amazing at removing static. If anybody has an amazing solution to removing static that is healthy, I would love to know because I haven't found one yet. So those are the main cleaning products that I look at. You know, what we wash our bodies with is the most important because we're actually putting it on, and our skin is, you know, an organ just like the other organs within our body, and it will suck in whatever you put on it. So what you're putting on your body is super important. So the body wash, the hand soap, the shampoo, like all those things. And then also like laundry detergent, right? You think, oh, I'm just washing my clothes in it. It's not going to touch me, but it is because the residue stays on the clothing, and then you put the clothing on, and then it's touching your body. So lots of different ways the toxins can impact us there. Number 5 is makeup. So I don't wear a lot of makeup. I stopped wearing makeup entirely when I was really, really having some severe issues with this. But I wear a little bit of makeup now, but I don't wear any foundation. The only makeup that I wear now is eyeliner and mascara, and a little bit of cover up for the dark circles that I perpetually have because I was in chronic fatigue for so long and neurological fatigue. So those are the only 3 things I wear. I don't even wear lipstick because most lipstick has really toxic things in it just because of the color, right? In order to make that color, a lot of times they're using metals to do that. And it's just really hard to find a lipstick that didn't irritate me. So for me, when I put lipstick on, I can immediately tell if it's bothering me or not because our lips are like super thin. And so it goes into your body much faster than like if I were to put it on my arm or something. And also it's closer to my problem point, which is my throat. Like in general, if I've eaten something, drank something, breathed in something that my body doesn't like, I will get like a lump in my throat immediately. And lipstick would always do that to me, so I don't wear lipstick. Sometimes I'll wear like a chapstick or something that's got a little bit of gloss to it, but in general, no. So, I can't talk a lot to makeup because I haven't found like the perfect clean makeup. So again, just look at what you're using, or I would consider cutting it out entirely for the time while you're trying to heal and trying to figure out what the problem is, because it's really hard to figure out what the problem is when your body is getting bombarded from all these different locations, right? Like the less stuff you can put in your body, the better. That way you can like really sift through the one that's causing the problem. I have a science background. I have a BS in environmental resource science from UC Davis. And so I've been trained in the scientific process, and you literally, like, if you're putting 15 different things in your body and you have no idea which one is actually causing the problem, there's no way you're going to be able to accurately state when you remove, like, if you had 15 items going in and you removed one, you could be accurate about that. Like, okay, I only removed one thing, that I'm pretty sure that that is the thing that was causing the problem. Versus if you remove three things at once, then you have no idea. Even if you got better, you have no idea which of those three things it was, right? So I'm very scientific in my approach to healing, and that I always add like one supplement at a time. I never add more than one supplement in if it's new. If it's new, I'm literally like, if it's new, I'll stop all my supplements and then I'll add in that one to see what happens, because I want to know if that one supplement is good or bad for me. And that's really the only way to tell, is to isolate it from everything else. So sorry, that's just my little nerd break. Um, and then the last thing, I already touched on it with air, but like scented things, like candles and air fresheners. So like not something that you would put on your body, but something that you would put in your air, like Febreze to like keep your couch smelling good if you've got a dog, or candles just because you like the smell, or air fresheners, like you go into your boy's room and it smells like dirty socks, and so you want to spray Lysol everywhere, right? Like, oh, I'm killing the germs and it smells better now. But really you're just adding more toxins into your body. So I really highly recommend getting rid of candles and air fresheners and using, well, I just don't use them, honestly. So like, I think it's better not to have them in at all, and using something like a fresh scent. Like if you have, I've seen a lot of people like, and I don't do this because I'd like to say I don't do a lot of things because I'm lazy, but that's actually not it. It's because I've had chronic fatigue for so long and I don't have the energy to do it. But I've seen a lot of people, well, they'll put a pot of water on to boil, and they'll boil some like nicely smelling things like cinnamon or lemons or citrus of like an orange or something like that, and they'll boil it so then like the air is diffused. It's diffused into the air, so kind of like essential oils, but not. Also, I do not use essential oils because essential oils also bother me. And I've tried because I love them. I love the way they smell, and I've tried to use them over and over and over again. But every time I do, my body lets me know, like, hey, this is not good for you. So I don't use essential oils either. So I've had to cut a lot of things out of my life that, like, most people are like, how do you live without that? How do you live without makeup? How do you live without essential oils? Like, how do you use aluminum deodorant? Right? Like, oh, my little nose. Sorry. Like I said, I was super sick last weekend, so I'm just healing up now. And I put a post out about that actually. So like I used to never get sick. Like literally I went years without getting sick, and then I got sick the other day, and I actually take that as a good sign because my body's actually fighting back, right? Sometimes when you are oops, sorry, hold on, I just gotta fix this real quick. Sometimes when you're not getting sick at all, it's because you have some viruses in your body that are taking care of those other viruses that come in. Like Epstein-Barr virus is particularly, is one of those ones that will take care of the other viruses that come in. So if you have a lot of Epstein-Barr virus in your body, you might not get sick a lot because Epstein-Barr virus will take care of anything new that comes in for you, which is helpful, but not helpful, right? So anyway, the fact that I got sick, I actually was happy about that. My immune system is working and it was actually fighting back for me. So that made me happy. So tell me, have you removed any of these other things that I just talked about from your life? And if so, what was your experience with it? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Which ones did you remove? And like, how did you do with it? Were you able to keep it out, or did you bring it back in? Like, I'd love to know. And again, if you're not here live, just answer in the replay and tag me so that I know what's in there and I'll go back in. Let's see what else. Make sure I covered everything. I think that's it. So at the end of the day, all the information that I just shared with you is free and out in the world, right? And you can read all the medical medium books. He talks about all the toxins and where they're coming from. You can follow him online, and he's very um, open and free and giving with this information. It's all out there, and you can totally heal your life just by following him. Um, and it's amazing. But I think where a lot of people struggle is like actually trying to implement the things, or something that he suggests doesn't work for them exactly the way they think it's going to work. Like either they can't drink celery juice, or the supplements give them too many healing reactions, or they can't stick to a cleanse because they don't know like the tricks and things to like make it work for you, right? And I don't mean like changing the cleanse, but I mean just like knowing how to prepare your food ahead of time, or knowing to like bring your food with you to a particular place where there might be food that you shouldn't be eating, or something like that, right? So basically, I'm a guide on your healing journey. So that's what I'm here to do, is to help guide you on your journey as you go. And if you know all the medical medium information, that's even better, because then I don't have to spend time teaching you that, and we could really move fast through this healing journey of yours, right? So I offer a 90-day program that basically takes you through the 5 steps of healing chronic fatigue. So we remove the environmental toxins, we add in healing foods, we remove the unhelpful foods. We cleanse our body. So we do 1 cleanse per month. So in 90 days, we'll get 3 cleanses in, and I'll lead you through them and help you get through each one. They're 9 days each. If you've ever done a medical medium cleanse, I'm talking about like the simplified 369 or the advanced 369, depending on where you're at. And then I can also help guide you with supplements, because we'll add supplements in as well, if you're ready for that. Not everyone is. Like I said, if you're just starting out on your journey, I recommend not starting off with supplements, just because the healing reactions can be too much for certain people. It depends on how sensitive you are and where you're at in your journey. So basically, that's what I do. I guide people through this healing process, and we start with 90 days. And if I actually have a guarantee that if you don't get the result that we've specified, because we'll meet and talk about it, decide what your result is going to be up front. And then if you don't get that result in 90 days, I will actually work with you for another 90 days free of cost. So we'll double your time if that's what you need. So it's actually a really great program. If you have any questions, please reach out to me. I would love to talk to you about it. And yeah, share this video with others that you think it can help, because at the end of the day, what I'm here to do is just help people heal. I don't want people to live on a mattress island like I did for a year. Like, I want people to get out and live their lives and be happy and healthy. So you can follow me on Instagram at Serenity Warrior Mama, or you can go check out the Warriors Network, which is a group that I have for people with chronic fatigue, at www.thewarriorsnetwork.com. And yeah, or you can follow me on Facebook. It's just under my name, Cynthia Soska. I don't have a regular page for it. I have a Serenity Warrior Mama page, but I don't use it very often. So anyway, it was great to be here with you all, and I hope that was helpful. And if you have any questions, please just put them in the comments and tag me, and I will respond as soon as I see it. Thanks.